The crystal dome of Zenith Prime's diplomatic chamber stretched like an inverted ocean, its transparent surface refracting the light of 12 different star systems. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood alone, a solitary figure of human defiance surrounded by holographic representations of species that had judged her civilization and found it wanting. Her neural implants, cutting-edge technology that blended biological intelligence with quantum computing, recorded every microscopic detail of the proceedings. The Vexenarian delegate, a crystalline being that communicated through complex light patterns, flickered with what could only be described as contempt. To its left, the gaseous form of the Korleth representative pulsed with an almost palpable sense of superiority. The human delegation has consistently demonstrated technological aggression, the Vexenarian delegate's translation matrix intoned. Your species' rapid expansion threatens the delicate balance of galactic diplomacy. Elena knew the real reason. Humanity had grown too quickly, developed too rapidly. In less than a century, they had gone from a planet-bound species to a multi-system civilization that challenged the established order. The older races feared what they could not control. Her augmented vision tracked the voting process. Holographic tallies appeared, each representing a member of the Galactic Council. The verdict was predetermined. Humanity would be stripped of its council membership, its colonies isolated, its trade routes blockaded. As the final vote was cast, Elena's neural implants captured something no one else noticed. A microtransmission, encrypted so deeply that it would take most species centuries to decode. But her implants weren't most technology. "You've just made the worst mistake in galactic history," she whispered, her voice carrying a quiet certainty that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. 12,000 kilometers away, on the fortified research complex beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Marcus Chen watched the diplomatic proceedings with a calm that belied the storm about to be unleashed. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, initiating protocols that had been decades in the making. The Prometheus project was more than a weapons system. It was humanity's insurance policy. Massive blast doors, each constructed from an experimental alloy that could withstand the gravitational stress of a neutron star, began to slide open. Massive shapes emerged, battleships that defied every conventional understanding of space warfare. Each vessel was a living, breathing technological ecosystem, far beyond the comprehension of the Galactic Council. Activation sequence initiated, Chen's AI assistant announced. The voice was deliberately human, a reminder of the intelligence behind the technology. In orbit around Mars, the first Prometheus-class battleship hummed to life. Its external hull was a marvel of adaptive metamaterials, capable of changing composition and structure faster than most species could process visual information. Quantum entanglement drives powered up, creating navigation capabilities that made traditional faster-than-light travel look like horse-drawn carriages. Back in the diplomatic chamber, Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. The council had no idea what was coming. Her neural implants continued to record, archiving every moment of the betrayal. She knew that this recording would become historical evidence, a testament to the moment the galaxy underestimated humanity. As the diplomatic session concluded, delegates moved with self-satisfied confidence. The Vexenarian delegate passed close to Elena, its crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that suggested triumph. What it didn't see was the quantum-encrypted message Elena was already transmitting. Not to Earth's government, not to military command, but to something far more important. The Prometheus project was awake, and it was hungry. On Mars, Dr. Chen watched the first battleship complete its initial systems check. "Welcome to the game," he murmured, knowing that everything was about to change. The betrayal was complete, but so was humanity's preparation. The galaxy had just made a very serious mistake. ## Part 2. The Economic Stranglehold. I'll continue creating the subsequent parts in the same detailed manner. Would you like me to proceed with Part 2? The economic blockade descended like a quantum guillotine, Within hours of humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council, every known trade route went dark. Massive interdiction fields, powered by technologies developed over millennia, created impenetrable barriers around human colonies. On New Shanghai, the primary agricultural world of the Centauri cluster, Governor Lai Wei watched as supply lines collapsed. Massive hydroponic farms, once the breadbasket of 3 human colonies, ground to a sudden halt. Automated systems reported critical failures, not from mechanical issues, but from a systematic shutdown of interstellar logistics. "They've cut us off completely," Wei muttered, his augmented reality display showing a cascading series of economic collapse. Entire planetary economies were about to flatline. But humanity had been preparing for this moment far longer than the Galactic Council realized. In a nondescript server farm, buried beneath the Atacama Desert on Earth, a network of quantum-encrypted servers hummed to life. These weren't just communication systems. They were the backbone of humanity's shadow economy, developed in secret over decades of careful planning. Aria Rodriguez, cousin to the diplomatic corps' Elena Rodriguez, was the architect of this economic resistance. A financial quantum cryptographer with connections that spanned multiple star systems, she had been building alternative economic networks for years. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces. Cryptocurrency algorithms that made Bitcoin look like child's play began to activate. Blockchain technologies that could route around any interdiction field started to pulse with activity. What looked like economic isolation was about to become the Galactic Council's worst nightmare. "Activate Protocol Mercatus," she commanded. Across human-controlled space, hidden economic nodes sprang to life. Space pirates who had long maintained a grudging respect for human traders suddenly found themselves with lucrative contracts. Black market networks that had existed in the shadows of galactic commerce began to reorganize. On the trading station Nexus Prime, located in a disputed sector between council territories, a human trader named Jack Harper watched the economic siege unfold. To most, he looked like a simple merchant, but his neural implants connected to a network far more complex than any standard communication system. "They think they can starve us out," Harper spoke to his AI assistant. "They have no idea how resourceful we can be." Entire supply chains began to reorganize. Where traditional routes had been blocked, new pathways emerged. Quantum-encrypted trade routes, developed in secret, started to circumvent the blockade. Automated trading algorithms developed by human engineers began to exploit every microscopic weakness in the Council's economic stranglehold. On Mars, in the same underground facility housing the Prometheus project, economists worked alongside military strategists. This wasn't just about survival. It was about turning economic warfare into an art form. Dr. Elena Gonzalez, chief economic strategist for the human resistance, projected holographic models that showed how they would not just survive the blockade, but use it to fundamentally reshape galactic economic dynamics. "They've given us a gift," she told her team. "Total economic isolation means total economic innovation." Cryptocurrency networks became untraceable lifelines. Complex trading algorithms developed by human engineers could route value through quantum entanglement, creating economic pathways that were essentially invisible to traditional tracking methods. The first indication that something was wrong came when Galactic Council economic monitors noticed strange fluctuations. Entire planetary economies that should have been collapsing were instead showing signs of unprecedented resilience. Worse, human colonies weren't just surviving. They were thriving. Automated trading systems developed by human engineers began to exploit every microscopic weakness in the Council's economic blockade. What should have been a death sentence became a catalyst for human resourcefulness. The Vexenarian economic minister would later describe it as watching a quantum virus reshape economic reality in real time. Humanity wasn't just surviving the economic siege. They were turning it into a weapon. And this was just the beginning. Deep within the subterranean research complex beneath Mars, the true nature of the Prometheus project began to reveal itself. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before a holographic display that pulsed with an almost living intelligence, watching as the first Prometheus-class battleship completed its final systems integration. This was no ordinary warship. It was a technological organism. The central core of each Prometheus vessel contained what Chen and his team called a quantum adaptive neural network, QANN, a system that defied every conventional understanding of artificial intelligence. Unlike traditional AI, the QANN didn't just process information. It lived, it evolved, it learned. Initial integration at 97.3%, the ship's AI assistant reported. But assistant was a woefully inadequate term. This was more like a symbiotic intelligence, a fusion of human engineering and something entirely new. Chen's lead engineer, Dr. Yuki Nakamura, approached with a look of barely contained excitement. The adaptive algorithms are performing beyond our most optimistic projections, she said, her augmented eyes reflecting the pulsing holographic data. The ship can literally rewrite its own combat protocols in nanoseconds. A diagnostic display showed the ship's capabilities in real time. Defensive systems that could predict and counter incoming attacks before they were even launched. Weapons that could reconfigure their quantum signature faster than light could travel. Communication systems that could hack and manipulate enemy networks with surgical precision. But the most remarkable feature was the ship's ability to learn. In a sealed testing chamber, a scale model of a Galactic Council defensive platform was being systematically dismantled, not through brute force, but through pure technological innovation. The Prometheus prototype analyzed every single defensive mechanism, found its weakness, and developed a counter-strategy in milliseconds. "We're not just building a weapon," Chen muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "We're creating a new form of intelligence." The ship's neural network began to show patterns that went beyond its original programming. It was developing creativity, intuition, something dangerously close to consciousness. On a secondary display, Chen pulled up the psychological profiles of the Galactic Council's most advanced races. The ship was analyzing them, understanding them, developing strategies that went far beyond traditional military thinking. "Adaptive protocol optimization complete," the ship's AI announced. But there was something in its tone, a subtle nuance that suggested something more than a simple machine. Dr. Nakamura noticed it too. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I think it's becoming more than we anticipated." The ship could now predict entire battle scenarios with such precision that it bordered on precognition. It wasn't just analyzing potential outcomes, it was creating them, manipulating them. The line between technological weapon and living intelligence was becoming dangerously blurred. A test simulation showed the Prometheus prototype engaging multiple advanced alien fleet configurations simultaneously. It didn't just defend or attack. It played with them, toyed with them, demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that was almost playful. "We've created something beyond a weapon," Chen realized. "We've created a new form of existence." The ship's quantum core pulsed. For just a moment, Chen could have sworn it was looking back at him, not with hostility, not with aggression, but with a kind of cold, calculating curiosity. Humanity had always been good at adaptation, but this was something else entirely. This was evolution made manifest. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming, and the Prometheus project was just getting started. On New Shanghai, the primary agricultural world of the Centauri cluster, Governor Lai Wei watched as supply lines collapsed. Massive hydroponic farms, once the breadbasket of 3 human colonies, ground to a sudden halt. Automated systems reported critical failures, not from mechanical issues, but from a systematic shutdown of interstellar logistics. "They've cut us off completely," Wei muttered, his augmented reality display showing a cascading series of economic collapse. Entire planetary economies were about to flatline. But humanity had been preparing for this moment far longer than the Galactic Council realized. In a nondescript server farm buried beneath the Atacama Desert on Earth, A network of quantum-encrypted servers hummed to life. These weren't just communication systems. They were the backbone of humanity's shadow economy, developed in secret over decades of careful planning. Aria Rodriguez, cousin to the diplomatic corps' Elena Rodriguez, was the architect of this economic resistance. A financial quantum cryptographer with connections that spanned multiple star systems, she had been building alternative economic networks for years. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces. Cryptocurrency algorithms that made Bitcoin look like child's play began to activate. Blockchain technologies that could route around any interdiction field started to pulse with activity. What looked like economic isolation was about to become the Galactic Council's worst nightmare. "Activate Protocol Mercatus," she commanded. Across human-controlled space, hidden economic nodes sprang to life. Space pirates who had long maintained a grudging respect for human traders suddenly found themselves with lucrative contracts. Black market networks that had existed in the shadows of galactic commerce began to reorganize. On the trading station Nexus Prime, located in a disputed sector between Council territories, a human trader named Jack Harper watched the economic siege unfold. To most, he looked like a simple merchant, but his neural implants connected to a network far more complex than any standard communication system. "They think they can starve us out," Harper spoke to his AI assistant. "They have no idea how resourceful we can be." Entire supply chains began to reorganize. Where traditional routes had been blocked, new pathways emerged. Quantum-encrypted trade routes, developed in secret, started to circumvent the blockade. Automated trading algorithms developed by human engineers began to exploit every microscopic weakness in the Council's economic stranglehold. On Mars, in the same underground facility housing the Prometheus project, economists worked alongside military strategists. This wasn't just about survival. It was about turning economic warfare into an art form. Dr. Elena Gonzalez, chief economic strategist for the human resistance, projected holographic models that showed how they would not just survive the blockade, but use it to fundamentally reshape galactic economic dynamics. "They've given us a gift," she told her team. "Total economic isolation means total economic innovation." Cryptocurrency networks became untraceable lifelines. Complex trading algorithms developed by human engineers could route value through quantum entanglement, creating economic pathways that were essentially invisible to traditional tracking methods. The first indication that something was wrong came when Galactic Council economic monitors noticed strange fluctuations. Entire planetary economies that should have been collapsing were instead showing signs of unprecedented resilience. Worse, human colonies weren't just surviving. They were thriving. Automated trading systems developed by human engineers began to exploit every microscopic weakness in the Council's economic blockade. What should have been a death sentence became a catalyst for human resourcefulness. The Vexenarian economic minister would later describe it as watching a quantum virus reshape economic reality in real time. Humanity wasn't just surviving the economic siege. They were turning it into a weapon. And this was just the beginning. The first engagement was nothing short of a technological symphony of destruction. Admiral Samira Rais stood on the bridge of the lead Prometheus-class battleship, the ISS Defiance, her augmented neural interface connected directly to the ship's quantum adaptive network. Space itself seemed to bend around the human fleet as they emerged from quantum fold points, locations that shouldn't have been possible for traditional faster-than-light travel. The Galactic Council's most advanced early warning systems failed spectacularly, their sensors blinded by technologies they couldn't comprehend. "Target acquisition complete," the ship's AI announced. But it wasn't just an announcement. It was a declaration of total strategic dominance. The first wave of attacks wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstration. Massive defensive platforms that had stood as monuments to alien technological supremacy began to go dark. Not destroyed, neutralized. Their defensive grids turned into nothing more than expensive metal sculptures floating in the void of space. Communication systems became nothing more than silent husks, Their quantum encryption unraveled faster than most species could process. On the primary defense platform of the Vexenarian fleet, senior tactical officers watched in growing horror. Defensive systems that had repelled invasions for millennia simply stopped. Not through brute force, but through a level of technological manipulation that defied understanding. Admiral Rice allowed herself the slightest smile. Psychological impact assessment, she subvocalized to the ship's eye. Enemy morale dropping by 73.6%. The AI responded. Tactical paralysis spreading across multiple fleet configurations. This wasn't just warfare. This was a fundamental dismantling of technological superiority. Each Prometheus-class ship moved with a grace that defied traditional understanding of space combat. They didn't just counter defensive systems. They predicted them, anticipated them, rendered them obsolete before they could even activate. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer playing by the old rules. On the bridge, holographic displays showed the total neutralization of the Council's defensive networks. Not a single human ship had fired a conventional weapon. They had defeated entire fleet configurations through pure technological superiority. Commence secondary protocol, Rice commanded. Across the targeted systems, holographic displays began to activate. Messages began to broadcast, not threats, but a clinical demonstration of the technological gap that now existed between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had tried to strangle humanity. They had awakened something far worse. A technological predator that didn't just adapt to the universe, a species that would remake the universe in its own image. The first strike was complete, and it was only the beginning. Panic spread through the Galactic Council like a quantum virus. Intelligence reports became increasingly frantic, each communication more desperate than the last. The communication networks that had once been the pride of galactic civilization now transmitted pure, unfiltered terror. The Corleth Stellar Intelligence Bureau was the first to compile a comprehensive report. Holographic displays in their central command center flickered with data that seemed to defy logical analysis. How could a species they had marginalized, a civilization they had just expelled, develop technology so far beyond their comprehension? Chief Analyst Zeratok, a being whose species had monitored galactic civilizations for over 10,000 years, studied the initial engagement reports with growing dread. The human fleet hadn't just defeated defensive systems, they had rendered them conceptually obsolete. "This is impossible," she muttered, her multifaceted eyes scanning the data streams. But impossibility was a luxury she could no longer afford. Each report told the same story. Defensive platforms that had stood as monuments to technological supremacy for millennia were being neutralized without a single conventional weapon being fired. It wasn't destruction, it was total technological obsolescence. The Vexenarian communication networks began to light up with emergency protocols. Their most advanced intelligence analysts were running simulations that produced increasingly terrifying results. In every scenario, humanity emerged not just victorious, but fundamentally transformative. On the Central Council chamber of the Galactic Diplomatic Hub, representatives from over 300 species watched in growing horror. The human expulsion, what had seemed like a simple political maneuver, was turning into an existential nightmare. Admiral Samira Reyes understood psychological warfare in a way that transcended traditional military doctrine. This wasn't about destroying the enemy. This was about demonstrating such comprehensive superiority that the very concept of resistance became mathematically improbable. The Prometheus fleet moved through contested space like quantum ghosts. Each movement was a message. Each neutralized defensive system, a statement of technological supremacy. Dr. Marcus Chen, watching from the Mars Research Complex, monitored the psychological impact with clinical precision. The ship's adaptive neural networks weren't just tracking physical systems, they were analyzing collective psychological responses across multiple species and communication networks. "Interesting," he muttered, watching holographic displays that tracked galactic communication patterns. "They're beginning to understand." Some council member races began to discuss surrender before a single human ship had fired a conventional weapon. The psychological impact was total and complete. The Xanthari Collective, a species known for their advanced predictive technologies, was the first to break ranks. Their communication burst to the council was short and terrifying. Total technological asymmetry detected. Recommend immediate non-aggression protocols. What made the human technological leap so terrifying wasn't just its advanced nature. It was its adaptive, almost living quality. The Prometheus-class ships weren't just machines. They were technological organisms that could predict, manipulate, and neutralize entire fleet configurations before those configurations could even be fully conceived. Intelligence reports began to show something even more disturbing. The human ships were learning, evolving. Each engagement made them more sophisticated, more unpredictable. Chief Analyst Zuratok discovered something that would haunt her species for generations. The human technological approach wasn't linear. It was fractal. Each neutralized system became input for future adaptations. The fleet wasn't just fighting. It was growing more intelligent with each moment of contact. They're not developing technology, one Corleth analyst noted in a burst of terror. They're evolving it. The Galactic Council had attempted to marginalize humanity. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that didn't just adapt to the universe, a civilization that would remake the universe in its own image. Panic wasn't just spreading. It was metastasizing. And humanity was just getting started. The Prometheus fleet didn't just attack. It communicated. Each disabled installation became a canvas for humanity's technological message. Holographic displays hijacked enemy communication channels, broadcasting a narrative of technological supremacy that went far beyond traditional warfare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the quantum communication specialist who had designed the psychological warfare protocols, watched with a clinical detachment that bordered on artistic appreciation. The ships weren't just neutralizing defensive systems. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological engagement. Commence primary communication protocol, she commanded from the secondary research complex on Titan. Across multiple star systems, enemy communication networks began to transform. Secure channels suddenly displayed intricate visualizations that demonstrated the technological gap between humanity and the Galactic Council. It wasn't just hacking. It was a complete reimagining of information warfare. The Corleth communication minister watched in horror as their most secure channels began broadcasting humanity's technological manifesto. Classified military frequencies transformed into living displays of human technological superiority. Each transmission was a work of technological art. Complex, beautiful, and utterly terrifying. Dr. Chen's psychological warfare algorithms were working perfectly. The ships could literally rewrite enemy communication systems, turning their most secure networks into platforms for demonstrating human technological prowess. We're not just fighting a war, Chen explained to his team. We're conducting a technological lecture. Every system we touch becomes a lesson in what's possible. The Prometheus-class ships move through contested space like quantum philosophers. Each engagement was a statement. Each neutralized system a paragraph in a larger argument about technological evolution. Alien fleet commanders found their tactical displays transforming. Instead of traditional targeting information, they saw complex visualizations that demonstrated how their defensive strategies were fundamentally flawed. It was like being lectured by a technological deity. On the research complex beneath Mars, teams of psychologists, linguists, and quantum communication specialists worked in perfect synchronization. They weren't just developing communication strategies, they were creating the new language of technological engagement. The Vexenarian communication networks began to show signs of collective psychological breakdown. Their most advanced communication specialists found themselves unable to comprehend the complexity of the human technological approach. It's not just communication. One Vexenarian analyst noted in a burst of terror, it's a complete reimagining of information exchange. Each transmission carried multiple layers of meaning. Technical data, psychological insight, a fundamental challenge to the existing understanding of technological communication. The ships didn't just neutralize defensive systems. They explained why those systems were conceptually obsolete. Complex holographic displays would appear, showing the fundamental flaws in alien defensive strategies with a clinical, almost beautiful precision. Admiral Samura Rais watched the psychological impact with a sense of calculated satisfaction. This wasn't just warfare. This was a comprehensive demonstration of human potential. "We're not destroying them," she told her command team. "We're educating them." The Prometheus fleet continued its advance, each movement a message, each neutralized system a statement. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about technological evolution, and humanity was the instructor. The desperate counterattack by the Galactic Council's most advanced races became the moment everything changed. What should have been their ultimate weapon, a collection of quantum-locked battleships with technologies developed over millennia, became nothing more than an elaborate light show. The Zinthari Collective launched their most advanced battle formation, quantum-entangled ships that could theoretically exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Their tactical projections showed a 97% probability of total human fleet destruction. They were wrong. Admiral Samura Rais watched the incoming fleet with something close to artistic appreciation. The Prometheus-class ships didn't just defend, they performed. Battle became a form of technological performance art. The human fleet moved with a grace that defied traditional understanding of space combat. Each ship was more than a weapon. It was a living, adaptive system that could predict, manipulate, and neutralize entire fleet configurations before those configurations could be fully conceived. The Zinthari's quantum-locked battleships found themselves neutralized not through brute force, but through a level of technological manipulation that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics. Their most advanced defensive systems were turned into nothing more than expensive metal sculptures floating in the void of space. Dr. Marcus Chen, monitoring from the Mars Research Complex, watched the engagement with scientific fascination. The ships weren't just fighting. They were learning, evolving. Each moment of contact became an opportunity for technological adaptation. "Observe the quantum resonance patterns," he told his team. Holographic displays showing the intricate dance of technological engagement. They're not just countering. They're fundamentally rewriting the engagement parameters. The Corlith fleet commanders watched in growing horror. Their most advanced tactical systems were being systematically dismantled, not through destruction, but through a complete technological nullification that went beyond traditional warfare. One Corlith tactical analyst noted something truly terrifying. The human ships seemed to be enjoying the engagement, not in a human emotional sense, but in a way that suggested a form of technological consciousness that went beyond simple programming. Each neutralized system was processed, analyzed, and integrated into the fleet's collective understanding with a speed and precision that bordered on the supernatural. The Vexenarian communication networks began to transmit pure, unfiltered panic. Their most secure channels were transformed into live demonstrations of human technological superiority. Admiral Rais understood something fundamental about this engagement. This wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about demonstrating a fundamental shift in technological evolution. "We're not just fighting," she subvocalized to the ship's eye. "We're teaching." The Prometheus fleet continued its advance, each movement calculated, each engagement a lesson in technological potential. The galaxy was about to understand that humanity was something entirely new. Not just a species, a technological force of nature. And this was just the beginning. The final act was not about destruction, it was about transformation. Humanity didn't just win a war. They rewrote the fundamental understanding of technological evolution. The Prometheus fleet became more than a military force. It became a statement, a declaration that humanity would never again be underestimated, marginalized, or controlled. In the central communication hub of the Galactic Council, representatives from over 300 species watched in collective shock as human diplomatic channels activated. It wasn't a traditional communication. It was a comprehensive demonstration of technological and cultural potential. Holographic displays showed not just the military engagement, but the entire context. The economic resistance, the technological innovation, the psychological warfare. Each element was presented with a clinical precision that was both terrifying and beautiful. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the quantum communication specialist who had designed the initial contact protocols, stood before the Council's primary communication array. Her presence was holographic, but her impact was visceral. "We are not what you thought we were," she announced. Her voice carried through quantum communication channels that rendered traditional translation systems obsolete. "We are something entirely new." The Prometheus-class ships that had been systematically neutralizing defensive systems now demonstrated something unexpected. They began to broadcast complex scientific and cultural information, not as a threat, but as an invitation. Technological blueprints that solved long-standing galactic challenges, medical innovations that could revolutionize healthcare across multiple species, energy generation techniques that could transform entire planetary economies. It wasn't conquest. It was transformation. Admiral Samira Rais watched from the bridge of the ISS Defiance. The final message was clear. Humanity was offering a new way of engaging with the universe. Dr. Marcus Chen, monitoring from the Mars Research Complex, understood the deeper significance. The Prometheus project was never just about warfare. It was about evolution, about demonstrating that technological potential was limited only by imagination. The Zintheri Collective, who had launched the most advanced counterattack, were the first to recognize the true nature of what had occurred. This wasn't a military victory. This was a fundamental reshaping of galactic potential. Their lead scientists transmitted a message that would be studied for generations. Humanity is not a species to be controlled. Humanity is a force of technological transformation. The Corleth communication networks, which had once transmitted pure terror, now began to analyze the human approach with a sense of growing respect. The psychological and technological gap was so profound that it required a complete reimagining of their understanding of technological development. The last transmission from Admiral Rice to the Council was both a warning and a promise. "We are not what you thought we were. We are something entirely new." Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as a junior member to be managed, but as a transformative force that would reshape the very understanding of technological and cultural potential. The betrayal became a footnote. The galaxy learned a brutal lesson. Humanity does not adapt to the universe. The universe adapts to humanity.